Hello. Everybody, it's 3:22 p.m. Central Time, 5th of March, 2026. It's Thursday here in the USA, and I hope you're doing well. First earthquake update in a little while, so forgive me if I'm rusty. I'm also using a new copy of Google Earth, Windows, the whole bit, on the new computer. So that being said, we've been absent for a minute, but there's been a fair amount of activity going on. So let me turn on a display capture so you can see what I see ever so slightly better. And we're looking at the planet here, USGS feed and the Geophone Potsdam feed showing us 4.0 and greater internationally, 2 point something or greater in the US. And so many people contacting me today, especially over on X and on other social media, Facebook and so forth, asking about this earthquake here, the 4.9 down in Louisiana on the southern edge of the North American Craton. And I already looked the location up and made a post on this on X, but for those of you who don't know, down here in Louisiana, it's a large oil and gas pumping operation. Mainly fracking going on there, and so let me get this open on Google Earth. So as we look these things up, we're going to find locations that have something at the location, and that plays into why the earthquake struck there. If you're a new viewer, this might sound a little weird or something. You don't hear the professionals talking about this. I went and looked all across social media and in mainstream media to see if anybody noticed that right next to the earthquake is a fracking operation. Oil and gas, we're talking about tanks, pumps, jacks, and pipelines that connect across this area. And I'm not against oil and gas, but just so you know what we're talking about, all of these little squares and rectangles that are light colored here, like these are all oil and gas pumping operations. Now, this is Louisiana and the backwoods of Louisiana kind of thing going on here, but take a look at how much drilling is through the area. Maybe I turn off the roads a little bit. Again, every single one of these is a drill point. So when you drill out on something, when a wave is going through it, or a force, that force or wave can seek out the weak point in the mass, whatever you're drilling into. So whether it's a huge plate or a small stone, if you apply pressure or force from the underside or side to something that you've drilled, even if it's just on the surface and perforated, the wave or force can seek that point to release out of the mass. Simply put, if you drill into something, it weakens it. And so 4.9 earthquake striking there is significant. It's the biggest in decades for Louisiana, but we have to just go back to the start of the week and take a look at what else struck. We got a rare 4.4 earthquake that they downgraded to 4.1, and a 4.6 earthquake they downgraded to 4.2. These struck before the 4.9 struck down here at the drill points. And if you take the 4.6 or whatever it was to begin with out at Nevada, and the 4.4, if you add them together, it equals what struck down to the south. So their downgrades are a little weird, but there we go. Now, if we go look up the other spots up here in Nebraska, for instance, just north of Kansas, let's get that open. Cowles, Nebraska. Several people asking me what was at the location. I went and looked up the location to see if there was anything there on the surface, and there's like no military bases there nearby. There's an old oil pumping operation. We have to go look that up on the Nebraska site. But I'm not going to do that now. I don't want to bore you with looking up stuff from like old oil pumping operations. But there may still be remnants of it out here. But all I know is that there's old capped off wells in the county. They didn't have the GPS coordinates on the site. So just county-wise, I mean, we're talking about like something that's huge here for a county. But there's also something else here that's right next to this that's somewhat interesting, which is the NEXRAD radar station is right here, just north of Red Cloud. The radar station is, I don't have it marked here. It's literally just out in a field. Anyway, the NEXRAD radar is right here, within 10 miles. Somewhere right up in here, I believe. We could spend all day looking through these fields to try and find it. But yeah, you guys are welcome to look that up. I'm not saying the NEXRAD's related. I'm just saying the earthquake is next to the NEXRAD, and it's next to a large old pumping operation. Now, if we go just south down here, down into Kansas, we have current pumping operations that exist that are just like what we were looking at down in Louisiana as we go further south. But here we are. I couldn't find anything at the location in question except for the NEXRAD radar. And then that could get us into radio waves that are up in the sky and how it can convert into DC power. But that's speculation on my part because, again, this could just be an edge of the craton type earthquake or through the middle of the craton, coming off the edge, going into the middle. And the oil pumping nearby in the 1950s kind of tells me, okay, look, it sought this location out because of the old drill points there. But I can't show you where they were because we don't have the actual geocoordinates for it other than the county. In the 1950s, they weren't as retentive, if you want to call it that, about reporting where the drill points were, especially if they capped them off and didn't find much. But if you drill thousands of feet down into the plate and cap it off with concrete on the top, I'm telling you right now, the wave doesn't differentiate between a fault and a drill point. If it finds an easy way out, it will release there. So we're talking about a seismic wave that goes through the plate, in case you don't know. Let's go look up this earthquake down to the south in Texas and show you an example of some more drilling that is just in your face. So Texas is known for its drill points, in case you aren't familiar with Texas, but here we are, oil and gas going on here. We have a tank, a pump, a jack, a shadow of a jack, of a pump, and it connects from just one to the next, to the next, to the next. And Texas, has millions of drill points, more than Saudi Arabia. I'm not joking. Look at it. This is just one county in Texas. It goes crazy. So there's a lot of drilling there, a lot of oil and gas, and that's where the earthquake is, right at the oil and gas pumping operation, just like what we saw over in Louisiana. Let's go over to the west and take a look at the 4.2, which is actually a downgrade. And the mainstream media, as well as people on social media, talking about this a couple days ago when it struck on the first, actually more than a couple, 4 days ago when it struck. And look how on the feed it's a 4.3, but when I clicked on it, it was a 4.1. It's just weird, right? Well, everybody focused on it because of the nuclear operation here nearby where they did a bunch of underground blasting. Nuke tests. But when we looked the location up before, we've seen hundreds, if not thousands, of small earthquakes that strike around this location in question. See, there's Warm Springs. And backing out the location, you guys see, of course, there's more than just Warm Springs at these locations. The nuclear test site that's next to this site, we could spend all day talking about the nukes and how that can lead to man-made earthquakes. But just looking around the area, there's not much else here except for the old nuke test sites. And if you're familiar with the nuke, there are volcanoes here. So there are ancient volcanoes. 3D terrain is turned on so you can see them a little bit easier with their lava flows. I don't have my place marks on here, so that would come in handy if I had my place marks. But again, if you're familiar with the area, you know about the nuclear test sites. I don't have any of them marked here on this new copy of Google Earth. I will get my place marks back on here so we don't have to click around and look at stuff. And I'm sorry if you're hearing the click of this cheap mouse that I'm using. Now, right here are the lunar craters, and this is something else we have to pay attention to, that there's been a bunch of earthquakes that struck here for a long time. The people were worried this week because they thought we were doing nuke tests. And I'm here to tell you right now, if we were doing underground nuke tests, unless they're extremely small nuclear weapons, which I don't think we would do, that would leave a signature on a 5, a 6, a 7.0 basis if you detonate a nuclear weapon underground. So the lunar craters, well known. These are all small buttes and spatter cones that go on for miles. And then we have younger lava flows that are broken out on the sides of these older buttes. So you've got a spatter cone that kicked out a long time ago. There's the lava flow from it. And then off the side of it, a younger lava flow that came out. Proof that this area erupts from time to time for a long period of time. That's the lunar craters. And then just going to the south, here are the Goblin Knobs. And the Goblin Knobs are just like the lunar craters, but older. So both of them side by side. Again, I don't want to attribute it to the nuke test sites just because we're far enough away from the nuke sites directly that, again, we're not at the craters themselves. So I don't want to directly bring in the nuke sites on this yet, even though we are nearby. And by the way, if you notice that this is updated Google Earth, it sure looks like they've done a good job of trying to hide it by shading and so forth. You should be able to see it really easily from high altitude. Okay, so let's move on, right? So we had a 4-point-something earthquake there next to the volcanoes, which is also next to the nuke sites, and that's why everybody was interested in this. But I'm telling you right now, the volcanoes there are what we're looking at, not the nukes. There are no nukes going off there now. Man-made faults can exist from the nukes, but that's far enough away that I would think that the volcanoes are the culprit. As a wave is going across, it strikes over to the east at the old oil pumping operations next to the NEXRAD at the Kansas-Nebraska border. Then a 4.0 near 3.8, 4.0, striking in Texas, and then a 4.9, the biggest of the bunch, or the combined total of everything, striking down at the pumping operations down in Louisiana. Now, going over to the east, we don't stop there. We go over to the east, we get a small swarm on the New Madrid seismic zone here. Or let me turn the rings down. So the New Madrid seismic zone, my neck of the woods, started to swarm a little bit. Then we get over to the Kentucky-Ohio border and down here into South Carolina. And that's actually, we should probably go look both of these up. I don't know exactly what's at the location, at the Kentucky location. Did not look this up earlier. This would be a real-time lookup for me now. Now, I know down in Ohio, or up in Ohio, I mean, there are a bunch of fracking operations along the border. But it's far enough away that I just want to check and just see if there's anything here worth mentioning. Oh, here's the literal border. What do we got going on here? Railroad? Okay, we've got the railroad through there. What do we have going on across the river here? Ooh, what's with the electrical? Okay, we got a fair amount of electrical going on here. Is this some kind of power plant here nearby? Or is that just a point where it crosses the river? Either way, it's a whole bunch of electrical lines crossing the river. We have very low frequency electricity going through the power lines, and then you have flowing water going below it. If you don't know about very low frequency and it's tied to earthquakes, I could spend an hour lecturing on that or more, so you understand there's a very low frequency, ultra low frequency in some cases, wave Mother Nature generates that's going through the plate, and at the same time Mother Nature is generating that down on the plate. Humans up above are generating electricity that passes over areas where, when the wave is coming across, it can be sought out electromagnetically, like an electromagnetic punch point in the plate. Instead of a drill point for oil and gas, it's an electromagnetic punch point transferring electricity along an area. And where the two meet, I believe, I can't prove this yet because I don't have any way to get down in the plate and measure it, but that there's a scalar, an area where the waves cross, and in the area where the waves cross in that scalar, out comes a new wave, just like Lieutenant Colonel Thomas Bearden said happens in the sky when you use radio waves to do the same thing. All right, so backing it out, look where we are. We're right at the border. Now, Ohio, I don't have my place marks for this, but I believe the oil and gas pumping operations are over here in eastern Ohio, but seeing them from this elevation is going to be a little bit hard. Again, I'll have to download my place marks. Bear with me. Again, this is an update. I haven't done one in a month, and I'm working on a new computer. But wanted to do an update. Okay, so that's what's at the location there, power lines. Remember that because we may run into more power line earthquakes or power plant earthquakes as we go through this update. Which we see regularly, by the way. It's not weird to see this. Happens on a weekly basis around the world. Why did the biggest earthquake in the last 100 years on the east coast of the U.S. strike next to the Lake Anna nuclear power plant in Mineral, Virginia? Why did the biggest earthquake in the last 50 years for the whole planet, the 9.0 earthquake in Japan, strike off the coast of Fukushima nuclear power plant? Why did the LaSalle, Illinois nuclear power plant get hit with a 3.0 earthquake, a rare 3? Why did a 2.4 strike next to the Byron, Illinois nuclear power plant when the tritium leak happened? It happens over and over again around the world. Okay, here we are. Now, get this. This is perfect. A previous earthquake struck here last week that made the mainstream media in South Carolina here. And when I looked it up, again, I went and looked it up on my laptop. I didn't tell you guys about this. I didn't make a post on this. See, says Bomb Island. If you look up the history of this, they used this location here for World War II bombing practice. Goat Island is shaped like a goat. Anyway, I looked this up. I'm like, oh, wow. So this is an old bombing location. Wow, what are the chances of that? But these are not bombs. However, right next to it is this. A huge hydroelectric dam where they're generating a boatload of electricity. Look at the amount of power lines coming in and out of here. an insane amount. So we are directly next to a huge power generation station. We're also at a bombing range, which has to tie to a nearby base, which here we are in Columbia, South Carolina, but I don't know where the nearest military base is. Again, it could be down here. Is this one? I don't know. Air National Guard. Air National Guard Center is there. Look at that. We got a fighter jet out there. Look at F-16. All right next to there, we probably have another one nearby. The military bases tie into this. We'll get earthquakes next to military bases. My last video on YouTube, the topic of the video was the weird earthquakes that were happening one below Trump's golf course up in New Jersey. The biggest earthquake in the last 10 years for the whole East Coast, a 4.8 earthquake, struck below Trump's golf course last year, directly below the Bedminster golf course. And in the same video I did on YouTube, it also talks about the military bases. So here we are, Bomb Island, next to a set of power lines, next to the actual power generation station. VLF, very low frequency, man-made on the surface, and then going across down in the plate, Mother Nature, and where the two collide, you get yourself an earthquake. Let's go look up the 2.8 here on the New Madrid Seismic Zone. Marston, Missouri is where it's located, but it's right next to the town of New Madrid. I really think that they don't put New Madrid on the earthquakes there because they don't want average Joe Normie to just go crazy, right? We know how people react. You see the word New Madrid, you think megaquake. But look where we are. Here, whoops, almost closed it. Here we are. Here's the town of New Madrid right here. But the earthquake is next to something. See this? They decided to build a large coal-fired power plant down here. And so we have a huge amount of power generation right here in the middle of the New Madrid Seismic Zone. We're just a couple miles from it, and we're also right next to the Native American mounds that are right here. So you see this, New Madrid County Central High School. Next to it is the Mounds Park Cemetery, where they built the Western Cemetery around the Native American mound. Let me go ahead and show this to you at a ground level here. So maybe I need to zoom that in so you can read it. So the Mounds Park Cemetery, and you can drive down the road on Google Earth here, that is, and next to it and see the Native American mound right here. This is the Native American mound they left standing. They built the high school, they did an excavation for the high school next to it. And I'm telling you right now, there's probably something there too, and that's why they put the high school there. The water tower is also next to that, which you'll find next to a bunch of Native American mounds, or right across from them. You'll find water supplies coming out of them, kind of rewriting what they could have been to begin with. Anyway, they have the Mounds Park Cemetery there, right next to the mound, in between the mound and the power plant, on the edge of the New Madrid Seismic Zone. That's our 2.8, the biggest of the bunch. The rest are striking around it, following the power lines out from it. So that's a bit much, right? I mean, the biggest earthquakes of the week, striking next to drill points, striking next to power stations, striking next to a power line, and striking next to Bomb Island and another set of power lines and a hydroelectric dam. Now, if we go over to the west, over into Oklahoma, the biggest of the bunch for the week was a 3.2. Let's go look that up. That's Ratliff City, Oklahoma. They just had some major severe weather down there yesterday. I was watching Reed Timmer and the others, Dr. Reed Timmer with the Dominator, driving around in the storms again. It's that time of year. 'Tis the season for storm chasing. But we're not chasing storms. In this case, we're zooming in on something like I just showed you down in Louisiana and Texas. First of all, look at it. Do you see all these little dots on the ground? Every single one is a different drill point for oil and gas. Huge amount. They even leave the pipelines out on the surface just so they can monitor, and if anything breaks, they can see it at the surface and dig it out, as opposed to if you bury it, you could leak for a long time and you wouldn't know. So we've got a fair amount of oil and gas going on out here, and I mean a lot. And it goes on and up and over. All of these are drill points, not houses. Let me see if I can find some houses. Oh, here's one. Here's a house. There's a house, and then right next to it, here's one with a literal team of people out there working in 2023 putting the derrick up and wow, all right. New tanks, new pumps, new jacks, a lot of oil and gas, and especially now with the way things are going internationally. You guys know the situation. If you don't, I'm not getting into that. Just Let you know that the oil and gas is very, very high commodity now. Now, do I need to show you the rest across Texas? I shouldn't need to. Again, down in South Texas, it's the same thing that I just showed you up here in Oklahoma and showed you here in Louisiana. Every single earthquake here is next to a large pumping operation. Let's go look up this one in Stanton, Texas, next to Midland, northeast of Midland. You may know Midland, Texas. That's the Bush family with their ranch down there. But let's go put it in and go show you. So just like in Louisiana, it's an insane amount of drilling going on here. Tanks, pumps, jacks, and pipelines. Black gold. And Texas through the roof. Through the roof. Millions of drill points, like I told you. This is just one county here. Oh, wait. Did we already look that one up? Maybe we did. Over to the west, it's the same thing. This is over at the New Mexico border. Let's go up into New Mexico now because it says White City, New Mexico there. We're right at the Texas border, but there's no differentiation when it comes to drilling. So we just go right out of Texas over into New Mexico, and they're doing the same thing. Here is our earthquake epicenter, and right next to the earthquake epicenter, we have at least one old pad, which still has a mark on it. Something actually that's been capped off there. Here's tanks, pumps, jacks, and pipelines on the next that are, they paint them so they blend in with the surrounding environment, so they're not an eyesore for people who look out over the countryside and see tanks, pumps, jacks, and pipelines as far as you can see. There we go. So it's a large oil pumping operation, just like what I showed you over in Texas, and it doesn't stop. Again, it goes throughout New Mexico, is doing the same thing. All right, so are you starting to see a common thread here across Texas, Oklahoma, Louisiana, Nebraska, and then once we get beyond there, we get next to power generation stations. Up at the Colorado border with New Mexico on the north side, it is the same thing. Weston, Colorado, where it is triangulated from, but it's on the New Mexico side of the border next to Trinidad, Colorado, and it's drilled again. But let me show that to you. Picture proof is, I don't just want to tell you, I'll show you. And you see it, these little roads that go out and go down to little turnarounds, and let me just zoom in on the closest one here. There we go. You see the shadow of the jack of the pump there, but we go on and on. There's the border with Colorado up north. Here's Colorado. Colorado actually passed a state regulation that requires them to build sheds or little houses around their tanks and pumps, but it looks like this one hasn't had it done yet. They will actually collect fresh water here and then take that fresh water in the pond and take it and inject it down into the ground, mixing it with toxic chemicals before they do that. They'll take that fresh water, they'll build those ponds just to collect free rainwater and so forth. All right, so both sides of the border, New Mexico, Colorado, both drilled. That's central Colorado, central New Mexico. So it's pretty much every earthquake, drill point or a power generation station, including on the New Madrid. Once we get over to the west, we get to the nuked site, but there's the volcano. Let's go down south and take a look at the 3.7 down at Beatty, Nevada. And I think I know it's here next to Beatty, but I don't have my place marks, so I'm going to be clicking around a lot. And this mouse is clickety click, click, click when I click it. I used to have a silent mouse. It was way less clicky. This thing's, you probably hear it when I'm clicking. Okay, earthquake epicenter is here. Oh, wow, look at the layers. So this gets into resets, okay? Like, how many times have this happened in the past? Well, there's lava flows here, and they were weathered in time over a long period of time. How many times has the Earth reset? It looks like it happens every few hundred years. Maybe it just happens in regions every few hundred years. But, man, I'll tell you what, that's a lot, right? That's a lot of layers. All right, so what else do we have going on out here? Well, look at this. It's a military test range. I wonder what they're doing out there. Well, this is right next to the nuke test sites, guys. This gets into, we're getting very close now to the nuke sites. And I don't want to have to get into the nuke sites directly because I don't want to get my stream shut off or my video shut down. But let me go ahead and turn on the Google Earth community, and we'll just show you what the Google Earth community has right here. Do you see all these craters in the ground? Now, I can just click on any crater here, and it'll give us information. Let's see what this one says. U.S. nuke Operation Persimmon. 4 kilotons on February 23rd, 1967. All right, that's just one of hundreds that go across just this valley alone, where we did a lot of our underground nuke tests. And then over here, we went into the 1980s and 90s. We were doing underground nuke tests in conjunction with the UK and France. And some of these went up really big. This one, U.S. nuke Operation Rex, 1966, 19 kilotons. That's not that big compared to the megatons, 1,000 kilotons, that they were doing on these. Which one is this one? 150 kilotons, E-Contact, on 1989, June 22nd, 1989. 150 kilotons there. So you get the idea. We're on the south side of that. Then over here is Frenchman's Flat, where they did the surface nuke test. They blew away the town and all that. Okay, so we're on the south side of the nuke site, and before we were on the north side of the nuke site. Something else I forgot to mention, which is right over here next to this, which is the famous Area 51, with its Groom Lake landing and extended runway. All right, but on the north side of there, we were up here at these volcanoes up here. So we're at two different sites. I just want to have to bring that to your attention that the bigger earthquake struck down next to the nuke sites. Okay, over to the west we go. Where do we go into California? Let's go to the 3.2 out here at Willows, California. And I already know what's in the middle of the valley here. There should be the Tuscan Buttes, but let's just see how close we are. There might be power lines here too. Hold on. They have power lines going across the Tuscan Buttes and up to Black Butte. Okay, here are the Tuscan Buttes. These are old volcanoes right here in the middle of the valley. And on the side of Tuscan Buttes, and we were having some trouble figuring out, and I never got an answer, by the way, as to whether they were doing, I think it's geothermal, but it could be oil and gas. And they've got these down the road over and over again along the side of this volcano. And then the power lines are on the east side of it. They brought the power lines over the location here. Well, let me zoom in on that. There we go. They brought the power lines over that location there, but so we're on one side we got power lines, on the other side we've got what look like geothermal drill points, and it spreads out across the valley here. Geothermals for heat on the old volcano. We're on the north side of there, but it's close enough, and there's more geothermal up here, it looks like. So geothermal here as well. We're in the middle of a geothermal pumping operation of some kind, and it goes across the farm fields. When we do geothermal, it's usually injecting water into the ground, but they could also just be to harness steam coming up out of the ground. So geothermal, volcanic, that's the earthquake up here in the north side of the valley, and it's one of the bigger of the week. Once we get over to the west, let's go look up the 3.3 over at Cobb, California. That's a creative way to put it at Geyserville, isn't it? This is Geyserville, California. But whenever there's a significant earthquake, they change it to Cobb so the public doesn't freak. If you go look up the smaller earthquakes, of course, they'll show you it says Geyserville. But look at what we have here. Geothermal turbines for electrical generation. And they're set all over the hillside, so they're generating power at this location, major power. It's drill points that go down into the volcano at Clear Lake Volcano, right here. So we're on the side of Clear Lake, where we have Cobb, California, and Geyserville. Mercuryville and Geyserville is over here. Well, where is it? Dang it. There it is. Geyserville is right there. So let's carry on. Again, another electrical point and volcanic point. So the two collide. And Mother Nature is releasing the wave at these spots, whether it's human generation or Mother Nature made. A breakpoint in the plate is a breakpoint in the plate. And electromagnetism apparently creates its own breakpoint without breaking anything. It's an electromagnetic point that it's breaking at. Look at this. So there's a little story on this. This is the old Chevron headquarters and Pacific Gas and Electric headquarters that have now been bought by someone. And it's still labeled as Chevron, by the way, but Chevron corporate headquarters is here, something down below it, obviously. But there was an earthquake that struck here that was near 5.0. Now, that same day that the 5.0 earthquake struck, here's this huge electrical substation that's here. Maybe I need to turn off the 3D buildings. There we go. Huge electrical substation there. And when the earthquake struck, a few hours later, north side of the Bay Area had that big power outage over here. And these power lines go right through over to the west, following through the mountains, and go into the Bay Area right here at Hayward on the Hayward Fault. So a 5.0 earthquake struck, then the power outage happened. Well, near 5, it was an upper 4. Then the power outage happened. Then that night, another earthquake struck here of similar size, near 5.0, and that one made the news. But everybody missed the huge electrical right at the spot. That's a substation where it was coming out. But we're going across where the Chevron headquarters are, PG&E headquarters, and they're doing a bunch of power generation here at the surface. These are all solar panels on both sides. They've got the whole thing done with solar panels. So that's a large amount of electricity going through the area. It goes right down here to the substation, and the earthquake strikes between where they're generating electricity and the substation that brings it up on out of there. So that being said, we go down to the south, 3.4, Pinnacles, California. It's the only one of the bunch that I don't know exactly what's at the spot. Let's go take a look. I know what's next to the spot, but I don't know exactly what's here, except for the San Andreas Fault. Pinnacles is just north of where we normally jump off the San Andreas. Okay, there we go. So we're south of Hollister. Yeah, okay, we're somewhat close. Do you see this right here? Here's the earthquake, and then there's a branch that goes off the San Andreas. I don't know the name of the fault. I probably should go look it up. But down here in this field, there are a bunch of oil and gas pumping operations. This is where the oil and gas pumping ops start for California in the valley. So tanks, pumps, jacks, and pipelines. Pretty good because I don't have any of my place marks. I just remember this by memory here. But so we go right there. We go down into here. We have drill points that start here, and then all of this is drilled all the way down. Tens of thousands of drill points here along the San Andreas for oil and gas. I don't think that's too smart, but whatever. We're not here to hear my narration on what smart versus not smart is. Look, when money's involved, I can understand. Maybe it is smart, you know. No offense to the people in California, but come on, they're billions of dollars, right? So here's the San Andreas, and then it branches off and goes over. So right where we branch off, we get the earthquake. Now, I'm going to call it next. Down here across the valley over on the east side, down by Sequoia National Forest, down here at this giant series, there's a few large laccoliths here. Bulges in the plate, like this one, for instance. This is a giant bulge in the plate right here. It's circular in nature or oval in nature, and it's corresponding across over here to Long Valley Caldera supervolcano. So Long Valley's on one side, looks like an eye. On the other side over here, we got a mound. They're about the same size, though. So the giant laccolith here is about the same size as the supervolcano, and they're separated by Yosemite. We go down to the south, there's more of these. There's another one right here that's collapsed. Laccolith is when magma comes in the plate and usually causes a bulge. It doesn't normally rupture, but you'll see structures like this over in Iran, for instance. You'll see collapsed laccoliths down there along the, the Gulf is what it's called. So there's one there, and then there's another one down here, right here in the plate. And this is actually a whole series of volcanoes that goes around here. I don't want to get too far into it on showing you all the volcanoes. Here's Golden Trout Creek volcano here. Golden Trout Creek, spatter cone. Next to it is Red Hill. Red Hill is just an older version of Golden Trout Creek. Here's Monash Mountain and Templeton Mountain. Here's Templeton. Here's Monash. There. Those are two of the same size and shape volcanoes. So really there's four of them. We have this one, again, Golden Trout Creek, then Red Hill, two of the same size and shape volcanoes. Then we have these two, and then we have a laccolith here. So there's three laccoliths, and I would expect this to go down and over and across down to the southern laccolith to the south. So we should see a new 3-point-something earthquake striking down here. Already got a 2.9. Let's go look that one up. That was a couple days ago, though. I would expect this to be in the 3 to maybe even 4.0 range in the next few days. So if you live in California, it's about to light up down in Southern California a little bit. Should be over here on the east side, though, over down by Ridgecrest. Yeah, look how close we are to the 2.9 already struck there a day ago. But I would look more down here next to Volcano Peak. This is Volcano Peak right here. Is that? Yeah. And then all the other subsequent volcanoes down to the south going down into China Lake. Magnitude on that should be in the 4 range most likely because we're already dealing with a whole bunch of 3s and a 4 on the north side. I would expect a 4 on the south side. That's coming into the south, I mean. So I guess that's Central California that we're talking about here. Now down south, all the way down here, let's go look up this earthquake on the south side of Salton Sea. And it's a 3.0, USGS 2.9. And you're going to notice something here when we go look it up. There's something at this location that's just like many of the other locations I showed you. So far, we've seen volcanoes, power generation stations, and drill points, right? So here we are, Southern California, and we've got more of the same. We have all 3 going on at the same spot. So we have power generation with solar panels. We have power generation with geothermal. We have geothermal drill points all around the location where they inject water to get steam to turn those turbines. And then this. All of these, for miles and miles and miles now, are all solar panels. They've converted over these farm fields to solar panels. Look at it. It's insane. That's a lot of power generation. This is Mexico now. This is the Mexico border is on the south side there. And so all of this is power. Let me see if I can get a street level on this. Hold on. What does this look like at a street level? There's a house. Look at that. Right? Going to sleep at night, you got a low hum in your head. 24/7, 365, right? It probably even generates power at night. I know there's solar panels. They're not going to do that. But, I mean, seriously, that just goes on and on for miles. A huge amount of electricity being generated there. And the very low frequency passing through the area seeks out drill points, power generation stations, and volcanoes. That's the final thing on here. The geothermal that's here is tied to the volcanoes nearby. There's 2 volcanoes. One in Southern California, one down here in Mexico. They're side by side. This one, Salton Sea, Salton Buttes. And they've actually scraped out the volcano here to some extent, like they actually scraped it away. But there's geothermal pumping operations that go right up to it, and we still have boiling mud pits at the location. As we go south, I just showed you right there. And then on the south side of the border down here in Mexico is Cerro Prieto volcano. And on the inside of Cerro Prieto is a bunch of creative imagery and I guess you call that graffiti that people did with rocks, stacking rocks. And then the Mexicans have done their own version of geothermal. They've got a huge geothermal field here that's producing a lot of power, electricity from the steam. So let's recap. Every location I just showed you, except for these 3, we didn't look up these 3 earthquakes in Southern California. Every single location is directly next to either a volcano, a drill point for oil and gas, or a drill point for geothermal. The power stations, it could be a hydroelectric dam. It could be a geothermal pumping operation. It could be a coal-fired power plant, like I showed you on the New Madrid seismic zone, or it could be a nuclear power plant. Doesn't matter what, or even solar. Even wind farms in some cases. So let's go up here and look at this 2.6, Indio, California. This should take us in next to 29 Palms Military Base. But I just want to see how close we're going. This is a Marine training area, or next to it at least. We're going next to 29 Palms. Maybe not directly at it. Let's see. I'll tell you this. You wouldn't want to be out in this back country either way, right? Okay, so we're on the edge of Joshua Tree. And 29 Palms is slightly different location up here. Or over here. What else do we have here nearby? I have to go look them up. It could just be a natural fault zone earthquake. It'd be the first one of the bunch, right? I mean, we've looked at almost all of them. Which ones are on just a natural fault? So Mother Nature previously found weak points in the plate naturally, and those are faults. However, when you've got man-made locations at the spots that keep getting hit, man can step in and tap into that in many cases. I don't see anything else nearby. Hold on, let's zoom in on the spot itself. Do we have any mines out here? I know there's a lot of old mines that are in the location. Do we have any big tailing piles? I mean, look what we've got going on here. So it already looks like somebody did some mining through here, but where's the tailing pile for it? Old tailing piles off the sides of these hills. A lot of them. Look at that. Well, okay, I mean, within a few miles, another valley over here with more. So where the mine entrances should be somewhere right in here. You might even be able to see them. Maybe they have them capped off. So there is no doubt about that. Those are mines, but they can't see anything at the surface. Well, anytime we have mines that are nearby, I have to, again, get into surface perforations. If they go down a few hundred to a few thousand feet, that's all you need. Okay, well, I can't prove it, but that's what I would think would be there. Let's go down and look at this one, 2.5, 2.6, Lake Henshaw, California. Maybe one of my viewers lives down near here. I think they do. I got a letter from this location once, a long time ago. One of my viewers has to live here, or used to. Let's go see. Get a sip of my coffee while we're at it. Oh, real nice. Hoity-toity area of California. Look at that. Nice lake down here. Hoity-toity is, if you're international viewer, let me just explain to you that means very nice. It means nice. You call it posh over in the UK, okay? That's what hoity-toity means. A little too posh. We got ranches. This could be one of our only fault zone earthquakes, unless there's some huge set of power lines here that I'm missing, or military base of some kind. Warner Springs. We have springs nearby. That could justify the lake. Okay. Now, I don't have the name on this fault, but you can see it in the mountains. Let's go get the USGS fault zone map open and just see what they've got for Southern California down here in this area. I'm just curious. We don't have to take very long on this. I just want to see if there's a fault name named on that. Let's match that up. Okay, we're just north of the lake. Is this the same lake that we were just looking at? Wait, different lake? Oh, no. Oh, here. There it is. No marked known faults along that. Look at that. That's interesting because you would think there would be. You would think, or wait. Oh, they disappear when you zoom in a certain distance on the USGS page. Well, isn't that wonderful? What is this? The Elsinore Fault. Oh, well, that's one of the most famous faults in Southern California. I should have just guessed. Anyway, the Elsinore. It's directly along the Elsinore Fault. Okay. So that's the only earthquake out of the whole bunch that doesn't have something directly suspicious or leading to the earthquake directly at the site. Out of everything that I just showed you, going across pretty much the whole country. Now, if we take it down to zeros, let's do that really quick. Let's take it down to zeros, ones, and twos, and just quickly zoom in on Oregon and Washington. And what you're going to see up here are a bunch of small earthquakes, stacks, swarms of earthquakes. And I don't want you to be alarmed when we go look them up. So 39 kilometers northeast of Amboy, Washington, my longtime viewers should hear that. It should ring a bell in their mind about what's at this location. This should take us in very close or inside of Mount St. Helens that blew in 1980. Huge blast. Look, we're on the flank of Mount St. Helens. I've got the location memorized because it always gets hit with small earthquake swarms when the plate starts moving. So it doesn't mean it's going to erupt. It's a sign of a weak point in the plate that's being excited as something's going through the area that's exciting it. And then guess what? We have another stack of earthquakes up here on the north side. And this is taking us in 11 kilometers northeast of Ashford, Washington. Longtime viewers should know this should take us in right next to Mount Rainier. Rainier. Let's go take a look and go see how close we're getting to Rainier. We're on the flank. There it is. Here's Mount Rainier. Now, sometimes we get right below the crater, up inside of the mountain itself. You get a negative earthquake, a negative altitude earthquake, where it looks like it's up in the sky, but really it's up inside of the mountain, like by a kilometer. In this case, we're on the flank or the side of it, but the reason there's a swarm there is the same reason that there's a swarm down at Mount St. Helens, and it's the same reason that the Seattle fault is lit up on both sides of the Olympic Peninsula going into Seattle, that there's a seismic wave coming in that's exciting the whole plate, going all the way down to Louisiana, 5.0 level, and it's going to reflect into itself here at some point and come back to the West Coast. We should see new significant activity on the West Coast going into the near 5.0 range. And I could even probably determine the location down to a 200-mile area just by looking at the current earthquakes here. Let's just take a quick gander at the earthquakes. Gander again. There I go. I'm a Missouri person. For international viewers, gander means take a quick look at. Sorry. A little bit of redneck comes out of me every time. Take a gander over there, Dutch. All right, let's go see. Let's go see where we're going to look. So if we were to try to find the halfway point or the triangulated point between all of these earthquakes seen here in Nevada and California, where would you say the middle point is? Just looking at it. So just looking at the current earthquakes, I would say the middle point between all of these earthquakes takes us in somewhere right here, which is Eastern California, Western Nevada. So I would watch Eastern California, Western Nevada, the middle of this hot mess, for a significant earthquake to strike, bigger than the combined total of everything around it plus the 4.9 all the way over here. So we have two things going on that I'm going to look for. One, the wave to go back over to the West Coast, bounce back into itself, and increase in power. Like a standing wave going across a pool, and then you jump again and put a new wave out and back, and they both combine. You get a slightly larger wave that forms when they combine. In this case, it would be the same thing. It would go 4.9 is going over to the east, should reflect back into itself. We should see something like a 5 over in Nevada. Then, same time, the part of the wave should go up the northeast and drop off a new 4 up here in the northeast. And then we can determine our areas to watch in the northeast by the current earthquakes that are all small, and we would find the middle point between this whole cluster up here. So 1.4, 1.7, 1.3, 1.6, 1.5, they're all the same sized earthquake within a hair of a point of each other. I'll look right in the middle, that's southeast Quebec, also by New Hampshire and Maine. So southeast Quebec, New Hampshire, Maine, that area up here in between all these 5 earthquakes at the middle point between them all. And that should go into the 4.0 range. So two things, again, a near 5 over here at the California-Nevada border, and then a 4 over on the East Coast. Simultaneously, swarming is going to be going on. We're going to be talking about earthquake swarms on the New Madrid seismic zone. Small earthquakes, but a whole bunch of them. We should also be talking about military bases getting hit over on the East Coast. And this gets into the weird stuff I don't want to talk about, right? What military bases, right? Like Joint Base Charleston, keep an eye out, right? Like, up in Rhode Island, keep an eye out, guys. Look, I can't do a forecast down to that fine of a point yet, but I'll tell you, we're going to see some activity over on the East Coast, especially with the military operations going on and them using very low frequency, ultra low frequency communication systems, and our enemies using directed energy weapons, as well as us. Now, that's just the U.S. update. Do we get into any more? Do we want to talk about international? Our deep earthquake activity. We had a deep 7.1 earthquake 9 to 10 days ago down below Malaysia here. And that was pretty rare up here in northwest Malaysia, down below it, 600 kilometers down below, something like that. A deep 7.1 earthquake struck. And we normally watch for 7 to 10 days. On a big earthquake like that down below, we watch for a shallower, larger earthquake to take place, or a huge spread of noteworthy earthquakes to spread out. So what happened? A series of noteworthy earthquakes spread out all the way to Alaska, back down through Indonesia, and over to the west. Oh, 1 second here. Hold on. Sorry, I had to clear my throat and do a slight sneeze. Yes, this is being recorded live. I'm not going to edit out anything. Anyway, deep 7.1 earthquake down below means we should watch for a shallow 8 or up to an 8. So something larger than the 7.1, up to an 8.1. and watch for 6-point somethings to spread out from the 7. So 2 things happen. Big deep earthquake. Right next to it, you watch for a big release up on top of it towards the surface. And then you watch for the whole plate boundary system to start moving. Let me show that to you here really quick. The plate boundary system. So think of it like this. Deep earthquake comes up from below the middle of the plate here at Malaysia. Then on all sides, we watch for movement to spread out, following the plate boundaries. And that's happened. Over the past week, we got a 6.5 over here at western Sumatra, Indonesia. We got 6 point something up here striking south of Japan. We got a swarm over here east of it, over on the Izu Ridge. We got a 6.0, 6 point something striking up here at Alaska, all in the past several days. Then going across on the opposite side of the plate, stuff going on too, tied to that. So far, we have not seen a shallower, larger earthquake next to the 7.1. The first part of this, the spread, has taken place. Let's get that all on the screen here and show it to you. Here's our 6s. Well, mid-range 5s and 6s. You see the 6s here. 6.2 over at Sumatra. Whoops. 6.0 on the Izu Ridge. Swarm equal to a 6. Strike. Well, actually, there was a 6 in there, but it's not there anymore. There in South Japan. And the 6.4 to 6.5 earthquake up here in Alaska. 5.7 earthquake just struck in the past few hours. Is that right? 1925 UTC a couple hours ago. And mid-range 5s going over across the plate in the other direction. The other direction is pretty obvious which way we're going. We go across the arrow this way, striking on the arrow or right next to it, out here in the middle of the ocean, on the fracture zone that connects the Cocos Plate to the Nazca Plate up to the north. And then on the north side, mid-range 5s, 5.2 and 5.3, same-sized earthquakes, and a 5.0. And if you take the 5 plus the 5.2, that equals 5.3. So we got a 5.3 on the north side, and a total equal to 5.3 on the south side of Central America. Going out over this way, look what we got, 5.2 and a 5.1. Add them together, equals 5.3. Striking on the east side of South America, all the way out at the mid-Atlantic fracture zone. So simply put, same-sized earthquakes went up this way, around, and same-sized earthquakes should go down to the south over the next few days. So Easter Island, south of Easter Island, South Chile, going down to South Sandwich Islands, and then back out to the South Mid-Atlantic Ridge, we should see the same-sized earthquakes take place in the next few days. It already happened once last week. Should happen again. Another sneeze cough. Hold on. I haven't talked in a month straight for an hour. You go ahead and try and talk for hours on end, or even an hour on end, without any mistakes, or coughs, or sneezes, or ums, or ands. It's hard, and I'm not kidding. All right, let's sum this up. 5.3 is the number of the day and the last few days going out from these locations. I mean, it's no coincidence we got a 5.2 to 5.3 here. We got a 5.2 to 5.3 over here. Down south at the start of the week, we got a 5.1 and a 5.3 down here. South of New Zealand, we got a 5.3 south and central New Zealand. We got a 5.1 to 5.4 striking at Papua New Guinea. So that's, and another 5.3 and a 5.1 striking here. And I can take it down to 4 so you can see I'm not cherry picking the 5s. It really is that. And if we take the 4s into account, the 4s fill in the middle points between the 5s. That's all they do, is a stepping stone path going out to Asia and over to Europe. This gets into Asia and Europe. So Bangladesh over here next to Myanmar, 4.8 to 4.9 earthquake, a 4.8 to 4.9 earthquake striking in China, a 4.3, 4.6, and a 4.3 added together equal 4.9, striking across Pakistan and Afghanistan. Then we get into Iran. Iran has not been hit with anything significant all week since the original 4.4 made the mainstream media. Everybody freaking out when this earthquake struck. I saw it all over X. I had to correct a bunch of people. They're like, oh, could it be a nuclear blast? I'm like, no, it's not a nuclear blast. It'd be way bigger seismically speaking, and the location. Why would they be detonating nukes out there? They're not going to try to send a warning. Like, right? So let's go look it up and go see what's there in Iran. I'll show you what's there. There's a bunch of collapsed mud volcanoes and laccoliths here nearby. Laccoliths are bulges in the plate that are formed when the plate is experiencing magma or uplift underneath it. Now, see these? Let me get a side view on this. So this is a laccolith / mud volcano. These explode. These can actually blow up. There was actually video of one blowing up in a different part of the planet. I don't know exactly when, in the past month. Saw it on social media somewhere. Now, when they collapse, they do stuff more like this. So they'll bulge up, and then some of them, when they collapse, they actually get a little bit magmatic to them. They can see natural gas explosions. Lava flows can even come out in some cases. Fumarole activity like geysers. And this goes out into the Gulf here, where there's new islands even form sometimes that are 10, 20, 30 feet high, even made of rock. They'll sink back down eventually after they gas up. But this whole area in Iran, all of these mountains are folds in the bend of the craton, or the plate, that goes through here. And let me show this to you. Let me turn off all the gobbledygook, all the borders, labels, places, Google Earth, all of it. There we go. So in Iran, you see all these right here. We have these same kind of structures. They look very similar here in the United States, in Arkansas. Just remember this shape here. See the concentric rings and how they go in folds, and the folds go down around, and there's, again, mud volcanoes and volcanoes. I'll show you them in Arkansas, south of Missouri right here. Same folds, same bends, same everything, but they're covered in trees. So on the edge of a plate, you can get folds and bends that over time, this gets into the weird reset things and the flipping of the earth, but not pole shift. It's an entirely different thing. But there's folds that happen, and the plates shift rapidly, apparently, enough to cause massive upheaval. And it's not over a long period of time. Has to be quick. Now, there is something here nearby. Again, we've got some towns and some other things. I've got some farming going on here. I don't know exactly what we're looking at here. Looks like more farming of some kind. At least they're scraping the earth there. And this is Iran, so finding out it's going to be a little hard. But I don't know of anything else here nearby. I don't see any oil pumping operations there in Iran, for instance. Now, Iran does have large oil pumping operations, but they're usually pretty visible from space. Well, if this is space. From an aerial photography view, they're usually visible. So I don't see anything there except for the folds in the plate. As the wave is going across here, let's go back over and look at the USGS map and just show you the spot in Iran that we're talking about here. All right, so down here in South Iran, you see the red line. That's the plate boundary that connects across from east to west, or southeast to northwest. And right along it, that's where the earthquake is. That's where all those folds in the bend of the plate are. Now, once we get over to the west, you see it dead ends into Turkey, but then it picks back up in central Turkey, where the mega quake happened a few years ago that killed the 100,000 people a few years ago, right there at the plate boundary in Turkey. So right there, let me zoom in on it. Right here, huge earthquake struck. Then a line of earthquakes broke out going across the Anatolian Fault all the way over here to the meet up with this plate boundary. And I propose to you that that's the day it became an actual plate boundary. You could still call it the Anatolian Fault, but I mean, it's just like calling the plate boundary in the United States here along the plate the San Andreas Fault. It's the plate boundary. And so it looks like it connected across there a few years ago. Now, whenever seismic activity comes across, it goes directly across this zone, drops off earthquakes over here by Cyprus. So we have to watch over by Cyprus, and the size of the magnitude. Well, look, the rings overlap on the location anyways. This is north of Israel and east of Greece. So let's just warn the people in Turkey, Cyprus, and Syria that we should be on watch, and it should be the combined total of all this. So if we take a 5 plus a 4 and 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 a 4, that equals about a 5.1. So we'll warn them for a 5.1, and anything over a 4, we have to warn them because a 4 we've seen take down buildings. They have a lot of stone stack structures, and if it's a shallow earthquake, if it's in a basin or if it causes vibration in between mountains, it can knock down buildings, unfortunately. We even saw 3s take down buildings in Italy right here, for instance. Okay, now Europe. You guys have been absent any large earthquake activity for months. When was the last 6 in the South Mediterranean? Or in the Central Mediterranean? In Greece, in Italy? It's been years. I want to say it seems like it's been years. It certainly has been a really long time. Now, do you see where all 3 sets of rings overlap here? It's a place called Ionia, Greece. Going as north, we go up into Bosnia, for instance. Over east, we got Bulgaria. And so right down here, this is Greece still and South Italy, but I would warn everybody from here at Ionia all the way up into Bosnia and all the way east to Bulgaria. And with the center of it being right here. And the magnitude on that could go up into the upper 5, low 6 level. And I'm basing that on two things. One, 6s are going across up to Alaska. The same distance out should go over to the west, should go over to Europe. Drop off a 6. We already have a trail of earthquakes leading right up to you. Again, if your next door neighbor is coming up to your doorstep, are you shocked when it knocks at your door? Okay, so the same would be with this. You have a bunch of earthquakes leading right up to your doorstep and stopping here. We don't have anything out at the Mid-Atlantic Ridge. In days, look, all week, nothing from Iceland north to the North Pole. Now, we can warn people. Let's warn people in Iceland. A new 5 in Iceland. I know that's not that big of a deal, but check it off the list when it hits. When there hasn't been one all week. Should be striking there in the next day or two at the latest. 2 days, 48 hours, Iceland, Svalbard, North Pole. But I would watch particularly the North Pole this time right up here, next to the X. That's next to the Gakkel supervolcano that professionals now admit is a supervolcano. So that's a quick update, right? What else are we going to look for? How about Central and South America? So let's just go ahead and check this one off the list. If you're going to look for activity here in Central America, we find the halfway point, the triangulated point between our current sets of earthquakes. Let's just take a look at that really quick. Here we go. So I would say we have to find the halfway point between these three sets, or triangulated point. That would put us here, Nicaragua, and magnitude would be the combined total of 3 5.3s. That's 5.53. So a mid-range 5. And then down to the south, I already told you, we're going to watch for 5.3s to strike at Chile, south of Rapa Nui, south of Easter Island out here in the ocean, and down at South Sandwich Islands, all the way to the south. Mexico, separate warning. Let's warn the coast of Mexico, south to Guerrero, Mexico. I can't pronounce it, guys. Let's just say along the coast, south of Mexico City. So go south of Mexico City where the V is. That's where Popocatépetl is. We go right down here and right in here. And it could go in the 6th level as well. I'm basing that on the 6s going across the rest of the plate. Back to Malaysia. We are on day 9 to day 10 of a 10-day watch for a shallower, larger earthquake. I'll tell you in the past, there's been a few times where a deep 7 strikes and then a shallow 8 hits within 10 days or so. And there's been a few times where a deep 7 hits and instead a spread goes out across the planet. Like either or. There's been one time where both happened. That's when a big deep earthquake happened. The next day, a shallower, larger earthquake struck. This is all the way over here at Fiji. We had a huge deep earthquake, and the next day, a shallower, larger earthquake struck. Then a bunch of noteworthy earthquakes, but not as big, spread out across the whole planet. You guys may remember that. It went all the way around the planet. The 6s and 7s went all the way around the planet, came back to the spot where it started. Actually, it wasn't Fiji. It was Indonesia. And it landed back here with a bunch of 7s. That was one of the most wild times. There was 5,000 earthquakes in a week that week. So right now we're at 2,300 for the whole week. So that lets you know we were double back then. What was that, 2018, 2017? It was an amazing time to see that happen. I don't want to ever see that again, though. That was the longest week and a half I could ever imagine. So let's recap. It's been a month since I've been back. My last earthquake update covered the earthquake below Trump's golf course and the earthquake below Joint Base Charleston. The military bases were getting hit. And now we've got drill points, power generation stations, oil and gas drill points, geothermal drill points, and then over on the West Coast, we've got volcanoes and power stations and drill points. So they all have something in common. On the north side, we've got volcanoes. On the south side, we've got drill points. On the east side, we've got drill points, and we're going to look for activity to spread across all of those. Now that you understand this, it kind of takes away the mystery of it, doesn't it? Like you can understand, oh, okay, well, you perforate something and a wave is going across through it, it's going to strike next to those perforations. If you have a power generation station that's putting out power and it's going through the power lines and Mother Nature has power down on the plate, the two match where the two waves cross, you get an earthquake, it takes the mystery away. And then you can replace that with vigilance. If you live next to a power plant, you can expect earthquake activity at some point. And you need to pay attention because, a lot of times it's small. It's not like it's huge earthquake activity all the time. It's only big when Mother Nature is adding more in from a far location away. So the deep earthquake activity, Mother Nature hammering in with a very low frequency in the plate, that comes up and spreads out, and that increases it for everybody. So I'm not blaming the oil pumping operation people. They didn't know. Nobody knew. When I came along in the past several years, everybody denied that there was a spread of earthquakes going across the North American craton. Everyone. They accused me of faking the earthquakes to make it look like they were going down through Texas and up the East Coast. These are the professionals. They said, if there was a pattern, we would have noticed. But I said, well, it's going down through Texas and up the East Coast every week. It's following the edge of the craton. It's hitting the drill points. Drill points don't cause earthquakes. If that was the case, Saudi Arabia would get hit. I said, dude, do you think you're really getting the proper view out of Saudi Arabia? And Saudi Arabia, their drill points are along the plate. So are we going to get it's going to look like natural earthquakes because they've drilled right along it, just like California. So that being said, now that you understand there's a flow of seismic activity that goes down through Texas and up the East Coast, you can start to look for this yourself. I've been around for the last month, but I hadn't had my computer. You could have seen this happening for the past few weeks on your own using a free copy of Earthquake 3D, or even keeping track of the quakes through the USGS website, which is a nightmare, but take a look at it. The last 7 days worth of 0.0 and greater earthquakes shows it, going down through Colorado, over to the east, and up the East Coast. And where did it come from? It's coming from a world away where our deep earthquakes are hammering up. And then that leads to the question, what's hammering up? What's coming up? And why is it coming up? Where's it coming from? I propose that it's a very low frequency, ultra low frequency, electrical in nature, like lightning almost, that's coming up from the core. And it comes up and hits the underside of the plate and then spreads out following these red lines. So simply put, I really truly think that coming up from down below the plate is electrical. And then it spreads out physically following the breaks in the plate. It'll hit a volcano, it'll hit a drill point, it'll hit a power station on its way out and away from where it came from. And when it comes up over here, it spreads up, out, and over to the US. Or up, out, and over to Europe. Or up, out, and over to South America when the deep earthquakes are here. And they tend to be here, but why? I don't know. It's a discharge point for the core of the Earth. But that means the core of the Earth is discharging something. And then that means, what is it discharging? It's some kind of low frequency, electrical in nature. We know lightning comes up out of the plates, but this would be something else, some kind of low frequency of some kind. Quake low frequency, QLF is what we should call it. We don't have a name for it yet, but it's definitely dropping off same-sized earthquakes, equidistantly spaced, proving it's some kind of standing wave electricity of some kind. Anyway, I digress into that. It's good to be back. The time now is 4:29 p.m. Central Time. I am recording, and we will upload this over on YouTube once I'm done here. We'll premiere it back, and I'll be in the chat room with you on YouTube watching myself back to see if I even sound okay. I'm using my old microphone on a new computer. We'll see how it sounds. Thank you for being here. And by the way, let me remind everybody, the time for you to prepare is like yesterday. So you need to have an emergency plan and an emergency kit. You need to have a change of clothes and a set of shoes and flashlight and batteries and those small items that you would need to survive a few days, and put them into a bag. I know it just sounds so simple, but very few people actually do it. Or if they do, it's tucked away somewhere far away. I have yet to see a disaster video, earthquake, fire, whatever, where people already have their emergency kits and they were ready to go. I still haven't seen it. And even for my own self, I felt my first earthquake a month and a half, 2 months ago here in the Midwest. We had a 4.0 range earthquake strike over in Illinois across the river from St. Louis. And it shook my house here. First one I've ever felt in my life. And guess what? It was negative something temperature outside, negative Fahrenheit. So, it's super cold outside. And I didn't have a pair of shoes on. I just had a pair of flimsy socks. And I thought, man, if that was a big earthquake, I'd be screwed right now. I'd be running around, not even following my own advice. I'm here in my office with my shoes off in a thin pair of socks on a negative temperature night, and an earthquake hits. So I didn't even follow my own advice. Now, I've got the emergency kit and everything, but guess where it was? Down in the freaking basement. Dirt. So I need to follow my own advice. You need to follow my advice. Do as I say, not as I do. You need to have your emergency kit set somewhere where you can get to it. Please have seasonal specific clothes set into that bag. And then also you need a flashlight. Don't try to rely on your phone. You want to use your phone for communication. And if you can even get a signal boosters, that kind of stuff. You can even look into the Starlink phones that talk to satellite. Okay, those are not expensive. So those are options. You want to have communication. You want to have food, also and water. Now the food and water is going to be a little difficult because water is really heavy and food is really bulky. So on the food, you probably want to have high protein, granola, high energy, sugar. The chances of wanting to eat a steak on day one of a disaster is probably going to be pretty slim. So you could probably forego those kind of big meals and instead have stuff in we're talking emergency kit now. Now, you should have long-term food, long-term water solutions and all that, but that gets expensive. I don't expect all my viewers to have that, but it's also something good to look into doing if you're going to prepare for things. Now, there's all kinds of other stuff going on, like I said, with Iran and the other. How do you prepare for that? I mean, do you even want to survive? If it's a nuke or something, you could have the tablets to take for radiation, but do you really want to? I guess you might want to. You may need to look into that. And then for all of it, the way society is going right now, have you guys noticed everybody's not really nice to each other? I kind of noticed this online lately that people aren't. Anyway, people have never been nice to each other throughout the history of humanity. They've always been ruthless, brutal, and especially when it hits the fan. So you need to have a form of self-defense because people are literally brutal and they don't care about you. I know that you go from Ned Flanders to the Terminator in a few minutes. You got to be prepared for that. I'm not. I'm going to let the Duchess take care of that. She's Catnip Evergreen is her name. She's great with the crossbow. We'll let her deal with that. I can't stand blood. Okay, that being said, guys, she can't either, but you know what I mean. She's the warrior princess. She's going to take care of it. I'll be right behind her with all my emergency food. So have a plan, be prepared, even if the plan is your wife, it's better than nothing, right? I'm kidding on that. But guys, much love. I'll be around if you need me. I'm cracking jokes here at the end. It's good to be back. It really is. And if anything else goes down significant earthquake-wise, I am back here at a moment's notice. If you like the update, you like finding out about where the earthquakes are, or even to hear my forecasting, please subscribe if you're new here. If you want to do your own forecasting, you can go to my YouTube channel and just type in how to forecast. Do the search option on my YouTube channel. It might even come up on main YouTube search. You can type how to forecast an earthquake by Dutch Sense, and you'll get my method. It's been published. Anybody can use it. It's easy to actually learn, so it's not very difficult once you get into it. But if you want to learn how to do your own forecasting, it's out there already. Step-by-step instructions, quickly explaining how to do it. I try to explain it in my updates, but sometimes, again, learning about deep earthquakes and very low frequency, and I don't expect you guys to be fully into it. I'll tell you where to watch, and if anything significant happens, I'll be back at a moment's notice. Word up, I'm out. Peace out, guys.